Hi, this is K.N.Fitzwater and you're watching my channel. So last week I was pretty serious about being in control of your own work. Just to clarify, I was not advocating to not listen to opinions or any help that you have asked in case that was an issue that you guys have. But simply not let anyone control you doing your work. I had an experience with someone who tried to do that. Not necessarily during the first draft, but definitely during the second draft. I had this issue. So I made a video about this called A Bad Cheerleader, which is about a very bad critique partner that I have to just kick out of my life. So I have a video about this from last year. I have it available or just want to see it. That's where it came from, and that's why I was so serious about the subject matter of being in control of your work and you being the audience. But today it's a little bit more lighthearted. We're going to talk about how to start your story. If you're used to being a conceptual writer and trying this out, you're kind of surprised that, oh, we're just now getting started. Don't fret, it's okay. You're going to have to start writing sometime, and now's the time. So I gave you an assignment last week about start thinking about the stories you want to write and what do you want to work with. You may have a sketch out idea about some sort of a story you want to work with, or maybe a character you want to play with, or a situation that this character was already in. It is possible you picked up like a prompt from someone or from a website to go ahead and get you started. And that's probably a good place to start, really. It's just a opening prompt that gets your mind going. So if you haven't had a prompt, or if you don't have an overarching story, I recommend not starting to write yet until you kind of have an idea what you want to write about. And if you got some sort of an idea you just want to start, then you're in the position to go ahead and put words on the page. Don't be afraid of the blank page. This is what the Pantser method is all about. The blank page is a canvas for you to paint on. It's for you to have a fresh start and start doing things the way you want it to be. But how to start? How to get things going? In cinema, we have something called the opening image. And the best way to have the opening image is start in the story where things are beginning to end. You probably heard this expression before. Start close to the ending. So I'll expand upon it. This is something that is an issue for writers or storytellers that have a very huge overarching story. They will build so much that they don't know where to start. They don't know to start in the past, they don't know to start in the future, they don't know which characters to pick up on because, you know, the other character is interesting as well. So you want to start close to the ending as possible. For instance, George Lucas started with Luke Skywalker instead of Anakin Skywalker. His story is closer to the end of the whole arc in dealing with the evil empire. Anakin Skywalker, his is the beginning of the rise of the evil empire. It's just the very beginning. Luke Skywalker is interesting because this is where we start coming to a close. We're going to finalize things. So if you want to know where to start in your story, that's a good place to start. Another good place to start is when most of your heroes have already aged and now they're mentors and there's a new set of heroes. This is what George R. R. Martin has to deal with in his storybook, in The Song of Fire. He did not start in Robert's Rebellion. He did not start in the wars that came before, the invasion and conquest of Westeros. He started when there was a problem beyond the wall, and Ned Stark's bastard son, Jon Snow, is of age to try to make a name for himself. And it also begins when there's a huge changeover in the throne. It also started when the power plays of the Game of Thrones occur. After the rebellion, after the dynasty of the other kings and queens. So that's another place to start, is when you have your old heroes either had died or become old, and you have some new ones you could work with and some new ground. So this is a good place to start. He has done that. It works. So start when things are becoming to an end in your story arc, and go from there. You will be able to create a huge enough fan base whether you want to ask what had happened before or during or afterwards, and you're able to expound upon it. But for now, when you're getting started, start at the end. Now, if you don't have that problem and you just only have a sketchy idea of a situation or a pickle that they are in and they need to get out, another great advice is start with the action. Now, we're not talking about blood, gore, explosions, death, and trying to escape or fist fight or anything like that. We're not talking about that kind of action. It can be in certain situations, especially if you're dealing with a thriller or a fantasy, but it doesn't have to be that. Case in point, it wasn't really a huge fight, but it started with a character named Artemis Entreri has to find someone who has intel to help him find the thing that he needs. What is the thing? Who is the person? Why does he need it? Why is he afraid? The reader will learn as they read. But when you start with action, it is when the character is already in the process of following through what they had previously planned. In the next video, I will be talking about reactions and actions. And that's what the good place to start is the action sequence. So briefly, just for this video, there is something that has happened to the character, probably a piece of information that they heard of, and they react to it. They have an emotional reaction, whether it be happiness, anger, they're afraid, they're sad. They have a primal reaction, and it's an emotional reaction. Then they have a logical reaction, where the mind starts kicking into gear and they start thinking about what to do. What should I do? How am I going to overcome this problem? So sometimes the character is going to bounce off ideas of other characters, or they're going to go research about it. They're going to think about it. Then they come up with a plan to do something about it. And after that, they act. They follow through the plan they come up with, and they go there. And sometimes these sequences are very quick. It can happen in a paragraph, or it can happen in a page, or it could happen throughout a chapter. It depends on how fast some things go. Each portion could be a chapter. Depends on how long your story is. But generally people go through those motions when they enter an action phase. You start with the action. You put an obstacle or a wrench into their plans, and they have to think on the fly. You put in an obstacle they have to overcome. For instance, he has a scheduled appointment with a guy, and there are people who are taking up his time. And he doesn't have the time to wait. So he has to do something about these people who are not wanting to leave. So that is a good example of throwing a wrench into the problem. Another one that doesn't deal with action per se is with Harry Potter. It started when he was a baby. After Hagrid dropped him off in the house, and he's taken care of by his uncle and aunt. Then it has to restart again when he's 11 years old, or almost 11 years old. This is an example of start at the ending. She didn't go through his whole childhood. She didn't have to go through how he's living in the Dursleys in all those years. She was able to showcase it in a small snapshot before he became 11 years old. And it all started with Dudley's birthday. In Dudley's birthday, they went to a zoo. And in the zoo, they were looking at a snake. Harry was pushed out of the way, just like in the movie. And that made him really mad. And all of a sudden, the glass disappeared and Dudley fell in. The snake left, saying thank you, because he's a polite snake, and went on his way, and then the glass went back up and Dudley was trapped. So, even though it was not an action sequence, it was not explosive, it showcased the daily life that Harry had to deal with, and it is an action that all the characters are already undertaken. The Dursleys had planned this for his birthday, for Dudley's birthday. They already made up their minds on it, and Harry, being the cousin, he's to be tagged along and, have to deal with it. The obstacle was being bullied and have to put up with Dudley's vices, and his reaction to being bullied created the magical thing that had occurred. So now you kind of have an idea of what the beginning should be, where you should place the beginning of your story, where to start. Now it comes down to the actual sentence, the actual beginning, the words on the page. I know that's scary. There are a couple of ways you could do that. You could start with a dialogue. For instance, in George R. R. Martin, he started with a dialogue tag. We should start back. Jared urged, as the woods began to grow dark around them. That is a good way to start. You could start with a dialogue. You could start with a thought. You could start with a sentence that poses a question. For instance, a good sentence is from J.R.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. That there created two questions. What is a hobbit? And why does it live in a hole in the ground? Instead of answering those questions, he went on to describe what the hole is. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. Of course, the movie did a slight twist to it, but that is the actual beginning of The Hobbit and the series. So, this author had built so much, he did not know where to start, and all of a sudden he got the inspiration to begin with that sentence. I hope this video is helpful to go ahead and get you started. To recap, if you have a huge series or if you have a very large overarching story with numerous characters, go ahead and try to start at the ending. So long it correlates with that ending and the beginning of it coming to a close, that's the best place to start. Start with action, whereas a character is already following through their plan. Or it's the other characters in control of the small character that already are following through their plan, and this character is along for the ride. Now, it doesn't have to be the main protagonist. George R.R. Martin had it where these are very minor characters that he started with the book. Jurassic Park, when it was a novel, started with a non-human character. It's not really the main characters. So if you have a scene that helps create questions, that helps reveals what's going on, and they're not exactly the main characters, that's okay. You will have to restart it when you create your next chapter, and I already gave you some clues how to go ahead and start. So yeah, go ahead and let me know what you think down below. If you have any questions about how to start and how to keep at it. The next video is going to be about how to build as we go. So we're going to talk about reactions and actions. Go ahead and hit subscribe to my channel. I try to do this every week, posting it up on Thursdays. And in case I was down with the flu or with the sickness, go ahead and hit that bell to be notified when I put up a new video. I try to do this every week, but you know, life happens. So just in case it's a little bit off, you'll be able to get alert when it was posted, so that way you can hop down and watch it. And I'll see you next week. Bye!